back and we're carrying on with fractions, and so let's dive straight in, and we're looking at these exercises on exercise 11 on page 95. All right, so we are now converting fractions to percentages, and remember what we want a denominator of 100. All right, so 3/10 we can quite easily get that to 100 by multiplying both the numerator and the denominator by 10. So we get 30 over 100, and 30 over 100 is obviously 30%. What do we need to multiply 20 by to get it to 100? Okay, and the answer is 5. So if we multiply the bottom by 5, we've got to multiply the top by 5, and we get 15. Out of 100, we get 15%. Right, just a quick look at this because it's interesting. This one is half the size of that one, right? When we double the denominator of a fraction, the bottom of a fraction, the fraction and actually gets half the size. So it gets halved. If we double the denominator, the fraction actually halves. Right, the next one is 5/16. Okay, now 5/16 is actually 5, and then we've got 4 lots of 2. Multiplying together. Okay, now to make these into tens, we would need to multiply by 5 4 times. And if we do that on the bottom, we must do that on the top. So we get 5 to the power of 4 times 5 to the power of 4. On the denominator, we're going to get 10 4 times. So in other words, we're going to get 10,000. And on the numerator, we've now got 5 to the power of 5. Okay, 5 to the power of 5, we probably wouldn't expect you to be able to work that out in your head. So let's bring up a calculator and see what that is. So 5 to the power of 5. So it's 5 5s multiplying together. It's 3,125. All right, 3125. Now 3125 over 10,000. Now to get this to hundredths, we're going to divide the bottom by 100, and that will leave us with 100. And we're going to divide the top by 100. So we're going to move that decimal place 2 times. So we actually get 31,25. So 5 out of 16 is actually 31,25%. Okay, so we wouldn't expect you to be able to do that kind of without a calculator, but actually it's important to sort of just understand how the numbers are put together. The next one's a little bit simpler because it's actually 60 over 125. We might be able to simplify this. Let's see if we can't divide the top and the bottom by something. What number goes into both 60 and 125? That's right, 5 does. 60 divided by 5 is 12. All right? Now, you may not know how many times 5 goes into 125. Let's just quickly remind ourselves how we would do that with kind of long division. 5 goes into 12, right, 2 times. And 2 times 5 would give us 10. All right, and we subtract and we bring down, and 5 goes into 25 5 times, and we get 25. Okay, so in fact, the answer is actually 25 times. 60 out of 125 is the same as 12 out of 25. Now remember, we want to get 100 on the bottom. What must we multiply 25 by to get to 100? And the answer is 4. But if we multiply the bottom by 4, we've also got to multiply the top by 4, and we get 48 hundredths. So our final answer, 48%. Okay, the next one, 21 out of 40. Right, we're trusting that you've tried these questions. We did ask you to try them before at the end of the last lesson. If you haven't tried them, then obviously rather try them first. 21 out of 40. Now, we can quite easily make that into 20ths. All right, so we're dividing the bottom by 2. We must divide the top by 2. Now, we're going to get 10,5. 10,5 out of 20. What must we multiply 20 by to get to 100? 5. So this is going to become 100. And now we need to multiply 10.5 by 5. all right, because we multiplied the bottom by 5, we must multiply the top by 5. 10 times 5 is 50. A half times 5 is 2.5. So this becomes 52.5 out of 100, and as a percentage, 52.5%. Right, the next one, 19 out of 20. I think we might have done this one yesterday, actually. All right, let's multiply the bottom by 5. Right, 5 20s are 100. 5 19s, all right, is the same as 19 lots of 5. 20 lots of 5 is 100. So 19 lots of 5 will be 5 less than 100. It will be 95 out of 100. 95 out of 100 is 95%. And we hope that that's the sort of maths mark that you are aiming for. All right? Make only one mistake on a test out of 20 and get 19 out of 20, 95%. All right, 3/8. Okay, now again, 8s is 2 times 2 times 2. Right, that's the prime factorizing of 8. We want to make this into a fraction with 10s on the bottom. We need to multiply each of these 2's by 5. And there are 3 2's, so we need 5 3's. Right, and if we do that on the bottom, we must do that on the top. Now, as one gets more and more comfortable working with numbers, one starts to realize 5 times 25 is actually 125. So on the bottom, we've got 1,000. Okay, that's 2 times 5, which is 10, and there are 3 of those, so it's 10 times 10 times 10, it's 1,000. On the top, we've got 125 times 3, and that's 375. Now, we want 100 on the denominator. And if we get 100 on the denominator, we need to divide this denominator by 10. So we must divide this numerator by 10. 37.5. 3/8 is actually 37.5%. Okay, the next one's 80ths. All right. Now let's see if we can simplify it down first. Let's see if we could maybe get it to 20ths. All right. Let's halve the top and halve the bottom. That's an equivalent fraction. Let's do that again. Halve the top, halve the bottom. In fact, let's do it one more time. Halve the top, halve the bottom. All right, 32 out of 80 is exactly the same as 4 out of 10. What must we do to this denominator to make it 100? And the answer is we must multiply by 10. But if we multiply the bottom by 10, we've also got to multiply the top by 10. Okay, so 32 out of 80 is exactly the same as 40 out of 100, and 40 out of 100 is exactly the same as 20%. Goodness gracious me. Ahí colento. Exactly the same as 40%, sorry. Okay. A quarter? Well, what must we multiply a quarter by to get to 100? What must we multiply 4 by to get to 100 rather? By 25. If we multiply the bottom by 25, we must multiply the top by 25. 1 quarter is 25%. And the very last one, 3 out of 200. Now 3 out of 200, if we want 100. So if we divide the bottom by 2, we must divide the top by 2. That will be 1.5, 1.5 out of 100. And 1.5 out of 100 is 1.5%. Okay, so we're hoping that you're realizing that decimals and percentages and fractions, they're all kind of integrated into one another. Right, so the next thing we're going to look at, and this is a really, really important idea, is increasing and decreasing in a given percentage, okay? So let's have a look at the number 0.06, what that number actually represents, okay? And we're going to actually first look at 0.6. 0.6, remember our decimal number system. This is our units column, and this is our tenths column. The next column would be the hundredths column. So what we've got here, we've got 6 in the tenths column, and we're doing this one. 6 in the tenths column is just 6 tenths. This one is a 6 in the hundredths column, 6 hundredths. Okay, now if it's 6 hundredths, okay, then it's actually 6%. So this one is actually 6%. 6%. This one is 6 out of 10. Now, what is 6 out of 10 in terms of hundredths? It's actually 60 out of 100. It's actually 60%. This one is, notice that this is not in the hundredths. This is in the thousandths. This is 0.6%. And we'll show why. That 6 is in the thousandth column. It's in this column over here. So 0.006 is actually equal to 6 over 1,000. But we don't want 1,000 on the denominator to get a percentage. We want 100. So we must divide the denominator by 10. So we must divide the numerator by 10. And that's why 0.6 out of 100, 0.6%. This number is bigger than 1. It's 1, and that little piece there corresponds to 6%. Remember, we saw that up from the very first row. But 1 is 100 out of 100. This number over here is 106%. This number over here, we've got 94 hundredths, okay? 94%. All right, now we need to be able to go the other way as well. All right, so we're going to write percentages as decimals. 8%. 8% means 8 out of 100. Now remember which column is the hundredths column. It's the second column. So 8% will be 0.08. 80%, all right, 80% is actually 80 out of 100, but that can simplify to 8 out of 10. So we want an 8 in our tenths column, the first column after the decimal point. 0.9%. Right, now that means 0.9 out of 100. Okay, 0.9 out of 100. Now, if we wanted to get a whole number on the top here, that would be 9. We've multiplied by 10. We must multiply the bottom by 10. That would be 9 out of 1,000. That would mean that we would have a 9 in our thousandth column, which is the third one after the decimal point. 108%. Well, remember, 1 is 100%. And then we need the 8%. Now the 8 is the 8 hundredths, so it's in the second digit there. 92%, 0.92. All right, and 500% is actually 500 out of 100. If we divide the top and the bottom by 100, we get 5. It's just 5. 500% is 5. Okay, so we need to be good at converting from percentages to decimals and back again. Okay, so now we're going to quickly show you if we wanted to increase 700 by 6%. All right, well, what we want 106% of 700. Now, so 106%, not 100%. 100% would just leave it exactly the same, all right? But 106%. Now, if we write this as a fraction, this is going to be 106 over 100 times by 700. Remember, of means times, okay? And what actually happens here, if we want to, we can do this without a calculator because we can. Remember that this 700 is 700 over 1. All right, so we can simplify and then multiply. So we can divide by 100 on the top and by 100 on the bottom. Now we've got 7 times 106. And 7 times 106 is not all that difficult to do because 7 times 100 is just 700. 7 times 6 is 42. And our final answer is 742. Right, this number over here that we've multiplied our number by, our 700 by, is actually 1.06, all right? It's 1.06, but it's also 106%. So we need to be comfortable that 1.06 is the same as 106%. And it's the same as 106 over 100. Notice that this number here, we're multiplying by a number slightly bigger than 1, and that's why our answer is increasing. Okay, we want you to try and see if you can work out the next two. Before we see you next time, discuss it with the person next to you. All right, we want to increase by 12%. Here we want to increase by 20%. We look forward to seeing you next time when we're going to look at the answers to these questions. Thank you. Have a great